Okay, so this is going to be the answer key for the review worksheet number 1. And so it's just a little bit of everything mixed in together here. Okay, so on this first one, we're going to want to go ahead and pull a GCF out. So we're going to pull a 3, and then we're also going to pull 3 ends out. Again, remember we pulled the smallest. So when you do that, you've got 1 end left, and then 3 divided by 3 is 1. Okay, and then keep in mind when your exponent's 1, on the inside, you're done. So this right here is your answer. Okay, number 2. All right, so this is a trinomial, so we're looking for factors of 42 that get us 13. And so you can always start your list 1 times 42, 2 times 21, etc. But 6 and 7 pop into my head right away. So 6 times 7 is 42, and then when I add it, it gets me the 13 in the middle. Since it's all positives, we already know that's positives. Your v squared breaks down to v and v. You have a plus, and then a plus 6, and a plus 7. Okay, so on this guy, this is a 4-term grouping guy. So I'm going to go ahead and break it up. Okay, and out of this first grouping here, I'm going to get a 2x squared for my GCF. So I have 8x plus 7 left. Now the second part, nothing comes out, so we always pull a 1 and get 8x plus 7. So you've got 2x squared plus 1 and then 8x plus 7. Now you technically are double checking, do you have difference of squares? Remember, we're always checking, can we go farther, can we go farther, can we go farther? So in this case, no, because you got an exponent of 1. On this case, we do have an exponent of 2, but we can't square root 2, and we have a plus sign, so we know we're done. Okay, so number 4, your only 2 options when you have a 2-parter is GCF and then difference of squares, so there is no GCF here. So then I'm going straight into difference of squares. Do I have subtraction in the middle, and can I square root? Can I square root? So I square root this 49 and get 7x. I know I've got a plus minus because it's a difference of squares. And then 81y squared, I'm going to get 9y and 9y. Okay, so on number 5, again, when it's a trinomial and I see big numbers, the very first thing I'm going to double check is it a perfect square? So, right, so keep in mind, can I square root? Can I square root? So I've got 7a, I've got 12b, and so when I take 7 times 12 and then multiply that by 2, that does give me the 168 here in the middle. All right, so my factors are going to be 7a and 12b. I use whatever's here in the middle and drop that down, so I have a negative, and then I know they're the 2 the same since it's a perfect square. So there's my answer. Okay, on number 6 here, okay, this is kind of just a hot mess. It's a trinomial, but it doesn't follow a pattern, so all you can do is pull a GCF here. So I'm going to pull out a 4, a 4, and then if I'm looking at my m's, I've got m, 2, and 2, so I'm only pulling 1 out. My n's, I've got 3, 2, 3, so I'm going to pull out 2. Remember, we're always just pulling the smallest. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. The m is gone. There's 1 in left. Then 8 divided by, 4 again is 2. And then I've got 1 m left, no n's. 5, and I'm going to have 1 m left and 1 n left there. Okay, on this guy, all right, again, first thing we're going to do is pull a GCF if we can. So in this case, I can pull a 2 out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to get x squared plus 9xy minus 10y squared. So now when I'm looking at this, this is now moved into just a trinomial with a 1 out front. So I'm looking for factors of 10 that get us 9. So 1 times 10 kind of pops into my mind because I know I'm going to have a positive negative combination here. So to get a positive 9, I'm going to make my 1 negative. So I'm going to have a 2. I have x minus 1, and then don't forget the y on the backside. And then I'm going to have x plus 10y. And that's going to be my answer here. Okay, on number 8. Well, on this guy, unfortunately, no GCF in all 3 parts, so I am going to have to go ahead and make a list in front and a list in back. Okay. All right. So now I'm doing inside outsides until I can find a 25. So when I kind of run through it right away, nothing pops out. But if I do a flip here, 2 times 10 would be 20. 1 times 5 would be 5, so there's my combination that will work. So I'm going to have a 2n and a 1n, all positives, and then I'm going to have a 5 and a 10. Okay. Oops. Okay, on the next page here, let's flip over. Okay, so on this one again, there's no GCF, so I am going to go ahead and have to write out a list. So I've got 1 times 5, 1 times 14, and 2 times 7. Okay, so now I'm looking for something with a 33. I'm going to go ahead and flip this because I think I see something here that will work. So if I take 5 times 7, I get 35, and 1 times 2 is 2. And so if I make that 35 negative, that will get me negative 33 when I add them up. And then keeping in mind your sign here, one's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. So it all kind of matches up here for us. So I've got a 5, 1, 2, 7 combo. So 5R, 1R, and then 2 and 7. Okay, so now just pay attention. You're doing your outsides here. You said you needed that negative. So the outsides here, I need that negative. So I'm going to go ahead and make this guy the negative, right? So I get a negative 35. And then on the inside here, I want a positive 2, so I put a positive there. Okay, and then again, you can check it to make sure that you got your signs right. Okay, so on number 10 here, see a GCF, so I'm going to go ahead and pull out a 5. So I get 9m squared minus 6m plus 1. Now on this one, you can go either way. You can make a list, or you can kind of identify it's a perfect square. They're small numbers, so either way will be fine here. But if I look here, I've got a 3m and a 1, and then I multiply that by 2, that gets me a 6 in the middle. So this is a perfect square. So I've got 5, 3m minus 1 squared, since it's a perfect square. All right, okay, so let's see. On this guy, I do have a GCF of a 3 that I can pull out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I get 9x squared minus 25. Now that I've pulled a GCF, now I check for difference of squares. Can I square root? Do I have subtraction? And can I square root? The answer is yes. So I'm going to get 3x minus 5 and 3x plus 5 for your difference of squares there. Okay. On number 12, we've got a 1 out front, so we're just looking for factors of 50. That will get us 5. So 5 and 10 pop into my head kind of right away there. I know I have to have a positive and a negative to get a negative 50, but I have more positives, so I'm going to go ahead and make this 5 negative, and that would make the 10 positive to get the extra positives. So I'm going to have R minus 5 and R plus 10. All right, 13. All right, there's no GCF, but this is a difference of squares. I can break that R to the 4th into R squared and R squared. I have the minus sign in the middle, right? Square root, minus, so it checks all our boxes off. So I have a minus 9 and a plus 9. Okay, now with this plus, we're done here. There's nothing you can do with that guy. This guy, though, we can go ahead and break down a little farther because we can square root, we have a minus, and we can square root again. So this is a DOS, or difference of squares. So I'm going to get R minus 3 and R plus 3. Now the R squared plus 9 is just hanging out because of that addition sign, so you're just rewriting him. And this here is going to be your answer. Okay. All right, 4-term grouping on this one. There is no GCF, so I'm going to go straight into pulling out my GCFs here. So I'm going to pull out 2 W's. I get W minus 3. I'm going to pull out negative 9, and that's going to flip my signs over to W minus 3. So I get W squared minus 9 and W minus 3. Now, you're doing great if you got to there, but did you recognize this guy right here was a difference of squares? So you can square root, you have a negative, and you can square root. Now on this guy over here, there's nothing we can do because there's an exponent of 1 right here. So we're done on that guy, but this guy can be broken down farther. So you're going to get W minus 3 and W plus 3, and then you're going to drop down the W minus 3 from this backside right here. And that right there is going to be your answer. All right, number 15. Unfortunately, there's no GCF, so I'm going to head to make a list here. I've got 1 times 2. I've got 1 times 50. 2 times 25. And then I've got 5 times 10. Okay, so I'm looking for 15. Now I need a positive negative combination to make this happen, which means I'm going to be different signs, subtract to get to the 15. So I think if I rewrite this guy, this will be 20, this will be 5, and then I'm going to make this guy negative, this guy positive to get my 15. Okay, so I've got a combination of 2, 1, and 5, 10. So I've got 2 in, 1 in, I have a 5 and a 10. Now we know we want our inside 5 here to be negative, and then I want my outside here 20 to be the positive, and that's going to be my answer. Okay. All right, on the next guy here, I see a GCF, so I'm going to go ahead and pull a 5 out and get 4a squared minus 3a minus, let's see, divide by 5 and get 27. Okay, so now I need to go ahead and make a list inside, outside. 1 times 4, 2 times 2, 1 times 27, 3 times 9, and I think those are my options. Now I know I need a positive negative here to get a negative 3. So let's see here. Okay, so I think I found something here right off the bat. 1 times 9 is 9. 4 times 3 is 12. So I would have a negative 12 to get to the negative 3 in the middle. I think that's looking pretty good. So I've got a 1, 4, 3, 9 combo here. Now that GCF of 5 needs to stay out front. I've got a 1a, a 4a. I've got a 3 and a 9. Now we know we want the outside 9 to be positive, so I'm putting a positive here. We want our inside 12 to be negative, so I'm putting a negative there. And then you can always FOIL it out to double check that you got your signs correct. Okay, number 17. All right, so I've got a 1 times 3, 1 times 14, 2 times 7. Now here's the deal. When I do inside, outside, I'm not going to find a 7 here right away. So I go ahead and flip, and I'm going to go inside, outsides here again and find out that there's no way to get a 7. So in this case, this is prime. But make sure that you flip and check everything before you call it prime. Okay, on this one, you can make a list, but I'm kind of seeing a square root right away, so I'm going to double check that. So I've got a 5x and a 4 is 20, and then multiply by that 2, and that gets me 40. All right, so I've got 5x minus, again, remember we're just bringing that down, 4 squared, since it was a perfect square. And that concludes this answer key.